Well, hey, Brian, this is a beautiful day today again with you, and thanks so much for your time. So this is episode 3, our focus today, Brian. We've talked about getting into quality time, specifically God, spouse, and kids, and this is encourage each other. A great quote from Hebrews chapter 3, verse 13. It says, encourage each other daily. So looking forward to our conversation today, building off of what we talked about before. But Brian, so tell us, how are you doing? Happy Easter. How's your Easter season going? How's the family? How's everybody doing?
We're doing great. We're definitely basking in the Easter graces that God's giving us. We had a little bonfire last night outside and said our night prayers around the bonfire, and so that was awesome. And
Praise God.
there are struggles, but God is with us in all of it, and so we're grateful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're doing well. It's a beautiful Easter season. We got some amazing weather out here. Just really beautiful weather. But it's crazy too. We're still in the house, and it's what I've seen amazing. Beautiful interactions with the kids. But I've also seen some crazy arguments and fights and stuff like that. But I guess that's normal. We're just trying to learn from our little things that kind of get in the way sometimes between a healthy relationship, right? But building up on some healthy interactions with our kids versus some unhealthy interactions. But it's all beautiful, and I really feel like this is kind of like a restorative time, even though it's difficult. Like I think of like exercise. When you're working out, like the strains, the pulls. There's going to be some times where things are going to be difficult, but you're trying to build and you're trying to strengthen, and you learn some things that you do. Okay, next time when I get in the gym, I ain't going to do that one. I'm going to try to do something else. But you're doing it because you're not giving up, regardless of the setbacks or the soreness. You're still trying to learn better techniques, better things to kind of help give you a better vision of what a healthy body looks like. In the same kind of way, we're trying to make what looks like a healthy family, and we're trying to strive and live that out.
Yeah, and a big part of actually, at least in my experience, and I think yours too, if I remember correctly over the years, is like it's great to be in the gym with a partner.
Yes,
to
exactly.
you, right? And so that's what we're trying to do here is to like, none of us has this all figured out.
Right.
None of us knows how to do quarantine perfectly. Right. And so we're trying to encourage each other and encourage everybody out there who's in the same boat, trying to be faithful husbands and wives and mothers and fathers and kids, and just doing the best that we can with each day we're given.
With some of our free time, a lot more time that we've had than in the past as a family. One of the things my wife and I we did last night was we watched that show Chosen. It's a new show. I know it's on YouTube, and I highly recommend The Chosen. It's on VidAngel right now. VidAngel is free for the month. You don't even have to put your credit card information down. You go on your Fire Stick and you look up VidAngel, VID Angel. And and man, I've heard so many people talking about it, and honestly, I've been kind of hesitant to kind of watch it for some reason. Like I kind of maybe have like a hesitation for some of the religious movies. I don't know if I'm sorry if that sounds bad, but I'm just kind of nervous that they're gonna it's gonna be messed up, and it's really important to me. And I don't know, maybe that's just my own problems that I got.
I've heard good things about it too. And so how was it?
Well, it was fantastic. Like we watched the first. So there's a season, and we watched the first episode. And man, just right out of the gates, it was really powerful, well done, well written. The dialogue, the acting, the whole the vision of it is beautiful. And so I'm sitting there watching it, and then at the end, at the end of that first episode, it just grabbed you. It was powerful. So I'm looking forward to watching this show. Like I said, I've heard a lot of people. Just not say, hey, it was pretty good. Like people raving about it, but again, that was always a thing for me. Like, I'll wait till I watch before I make any decisions. But anyway, if you're on the fence or if you haven't heard about it, highly recommend. You got to try it, man. Yeah,
awesome.
So that's The Chosen, and you got to check that out on VidAngel. So anyway, Brian, big topic. I really feel like this is foundational to everything we've been talking about. Getting into quality time, and specifically, this was one of the things that you'd mentioned too in our list of topics to get into. But I kind of put it into the 3 categories, like our prayer time with God, our quality time with our spouses, and then our special time with our children, and having that time. And just because, one of the things I've noticed too, right, is with quarantine, is giving us more time to do things. Like, I'm not commuting. So right now I'm not commuting. That's 2.5 hours each day, Monday through Friday, that I'm not spending commuting. That's a lot of time. That's over 10 hours, right? By the end of the week that I have now free, that's been given to me back, that I've normally used in the car driving. So then because of that, that's giving me more time to do things around the house. But at the same time, like, I still need to, I'm still struggling with getting enough quality time in with the kids, with Elise, and with God, even though I've been given, just on the commute alone, over 10, 12 hours of time. And I go back to the analogy we talked about on the first episode about building like little barriers, like little hedges or protecting guardrails, if you need to use the right words, to protect those times. Just because you have the time, you still got to make a space where nothing's going to get into that time. That your to-do list is not more important than your time with God, your wife, and your kids. You got to make time during the day. And it might not be a lot of time, but it's got to be something that's protected, that during that time, and they know that nothing else is going to interfere with that time unless a broken bone, there's blood or something going on, right?
Yeah, and there's obviously we could do hours on that one topic alone, but a few quick things that I wanted to share on it is, as I've struggled to grow in that over the years of the quality time with God, I've found, and I know I've talked to you about this too, you've agreed, like, first thing in the morning is just a killer. It's the way to start, is like give God the first fruits of your day. And that means waking up earlier and carving out that intentional space. And so it's on the schedule as the first thing on the schedule. And some people have talked about like being able to put the big rocks into your life first. Maybe you've seen like that image, right? Or the visual of like a jar. And if you have a bunch of rocks and they're all different sizes, if you put the very big ones in first and then the next size and then the next size all the way down to the pebbles and the grain of sand, you can fit more into that like vase or that jar than you can if you start with the smaller things.
Wow.
And our time with God is the biggest rock, and we've got to put it in first. And in Exodus chapter 33, we hear in the Old Testament about how Moses did that. Before there was this permanent structural place, before they had the tabernacle, he had a tent of meeting. And it said that Moses would go outside the camp and he would pitch a tent there. And that was where the pillar of cloud would come down and the Lord would speak with Moses in that space. And so being able to have that tent of meeting set up in our own homes or outside of our homes, because the camp of our house can sometimes be really busy and noisy. So maybe it's being able to take a walk outside. Maybe it's going into, as I think we talked about before, like, heading into a closet and closing the door.
Yes.
Finding your prayer time in the bathroom or wherever it is, like quality time set aside from the noise of the camp to spend with God is such a blessing, to go into that tent of meeting and get that quality time with God.
I think about whenever, okay, so the kids are supposed to be in bedtime, and I love what was the joke from I'm losing his name, Jim Gaffigan, and he talked about putting the kids to bed. He says it's like a hostage situation in reverse. Like, I'll give you anything, just stay in there, And so once you've got the kids to bed, like one of the things that we've done has been very helpful is that, like, instead of when the kids go to bed, the thing that we do immediately as soon as the kids are now going to bed, the first thing we try to do, if we don't, this always messes up if we don't do this, is that we say, okay, we're going right into our prayer time. So we're not going to watch that show. So before we watched The Chosen last night, the first thing we did was we did our prayer time. So when the kids come out and say, oh, hold on, guys, because it looks to them, when they see us just watching TV, and they're like, they don't get that's, even if we're just watching a show, that's still kind of a little bit of a quality time that we're trying to have together, just her and I watching a show. But all they see is like, why can't I hang out with mom and dad and watch the show? So like, no, guys, this is mommy and daddy's private prayer time that we share together, and we need that. So they respect that time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that like you're saying, like having that space, one of the things that I try to do for my prayer time is to kind of protect that and have that space. I've got my little chair in my bedroom. And like you said, I love that analogy. That was so beautiful about putting the first rocks in so that all the other rocks in the sand can fit more. I never heard that before. So to be able to, when I wake up in the morning, is that I get up and I just got to go from my bed to my chair, and that's a short distance. Sometimes I'll go get a cup of coffee and then go back to the chair. But nonetheless, that's my little spot, and it's before everybody else. So the before everybody else is kind of that fence. That's helping me to build a fence around this time to make sure nothing else goes into it. But I got to be able to communicate to my kids. I got to communicate even to Elise and say, hey, look, this is going to be, Daddy's going to do this right now. And I'm going to need a little space, because sometimes something happens in the morning and I can't, and I try to come back to it and say, hey guys, look, Daddy's going to get some prayer time in, so I need y'all to please be careful. Don't let Daddy have this time right now. And then they know that too, because whenever we have special time together, when I say, hey kids, I'm going to have special time with you, they don't like it when another one of the siblings comes in and interferes with their special time. And right. So like, hey guys, like, look, it's going to wait your turn. This is right now, I'm going to hang out with Jude. And then next Naomi, I'm going to hang out with you, or next Noah, I'm going to hang out with you, and all that kind of stuff like that.
One of the things that my dad did with me when I was growing up, kind of transitioning from to talk about like that special time with kids, is he would actually put it on the calendar. Again, calendaring things that are important. And I knew going 2 or 3 weeks out that on that particular Saturday morning was going to be Dad's quality time with me. And it was going to be 2 or 3 hours, just me and him. And I could look forward to it. And I could think about what I wanted to do and like go play football with him in the backyard. Or maybe he would take me bowling or go to breakfast or something like that. And it was a huge piece of my childhood that was anchoring me in relationship with my dad, and knowing that like he loved me. And we've probably heard that phrase of like kids spell love Time.
That's right.
And that is so setting aside that quality time or that special time with each kid, and like even putting it on a schedule that they even know it's on. Kids, their schedule, they bank on us for their schedule.
Yes.
The ones are like, when is it? Is it coming up? Like,
yes.
You can even write it down that it's going to be Friday at, after school at 3:00, or it's going to be this particular time, and they can look forward to it. We can look forward to it, and then be all held accountable.
That's a great point, to be specific about when it's going to be. Don't just say in a minute or in just when this is done. Like, say specifically at this time on this date, it's going to be me and you. And I love what you said too about like the special time and Time and how you spell love for kids. Because I remember, and it doesn't have to be big. I remember my dad and I, like, we lived out in the country. So back in the day, grew up in Ponchatoula, and I lived down a street where even the trash service didn't come and pick up your trash. You had to take your trash and you had to drive to a dumpster, and you put your trash in the dump. And I remember to this day driving in my dad's van and putting the trash in the van, and my dad and I getting in the van and riding together just to the dump. And he would say the same joke every time. Where does the Lone Ranger take his trash? And I said, where, Dad? And he says, to the dump, to the dump, to the dump, to the dump. So like, and I had this moment with my dad, and it's like, it doesn't have to be to Disney World. It doesn't have to be to some theme park or even to something spectacular. I was going to a dumpster, and I thought it was the best time in the world. So it's a matter of like making that time. And it was a short trip. It wasn't like this long drive, but I remember having that time. And again, that time is something is so sacred. And I feel like in this quarantine time, I know that there's a lot of struggles. And the one point I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to downplay any of the struggles or any of the intensity of what's going on right now, but I am trying to make a point to say, hey, look, there are blessings in the storm. And one of those blessings for most of us is that we have a lot of time. And that time, I think, is almost a gift that God is giving in this storm to help prioritize the things that's more important than our kids' athletic careers, from our daughters performing on stage, from us being involved in all these different projects, from us bringing it back to what is most important. And it comes to mind, I remember Professor Kraft over at Boston College, Peter Kraft. He was in an interview, and the guy was saying, hey, what's your favorite book that you've ever written? Because he's brilliant. He's written a lot of great books, his beautiful writings, and his speaking abilities is incredible. So he said what his favorite book was. And then the interview guy was like, hey, so but which one do you think is God's favorite? And he thought for a moment. He said, probably the one that I didn't write so that I could spend more time with my wife and kids. And I was like, boom, like that's it. That's it. At the end of the day, we've got to, and that's my point, is that if we compromise in this order, our time with God, our time with our spouse, and our time with our kids, doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be off. You can't even take your time with the kids and put it over God or put it over your wife. You can't take your time with your wife and put it over God. It's got to be in that order: God, wife, and children.
Yep.
And then everything else.
Yeah, and when I first, Lisa and I, we kind of transitioned to talk about the kids second, but you're absolutely right. Like having our spouses next after our quality time with God is key. And when we were engaged, we talked about that. Is like, okay, and I shared a little bit of a vision of what I wanted, and I maybe it wasn't the best thing to do, but I brought in a sports analogy as part of it, right? Which was there was a guy who played for the Bears back in the day, and his name was Gale Sayers, and he figured out in life that like he was happiest and everything. The recipe for true success was when he put God first, he put others second, and he put himself third. And that's what I told Lisa. I said, I want us to be so that I'm going to put God first in my life, and I'm going to put you second, and then I'm going to put and our kids along in that space, and then myself would be last. And she wasn't happy with that at first because she didn't understand. She's like, I want to be first.
That's right.
And we can laugh about it now, but back then it was, at that point in time, it didn't really translate as to how me putting time with God first would actually be a service to her and the kids. And over time, we certainly grew into that, and she's 1,000% behind that now, and now we just struggled to live it out. But that quality time with God leads into quality time with our spouses. And one thing I wanted to point out was like that with our spouses and our kids, a little rubric that we could use is to look at the length, the depth, the frequency, and the focus of that time. Right. The length, the depth, the frequency, and the focus. So is it quality time if we only spend like 15 minutes? I'll just play a quick game with you. Right. Is that quality time?
Right.
Is it really setting out that hour, that 2 hours of being able to really settle in? So the length. And then the depth is like, okay, do we just talk about the weather or just talk about our show? Or do we start to move deeper into conversation of the heart and of what's mattering, to them, what matters to us, being vulnerable, encouraging them to be vulnerable, but pacing it. And then the focus of being able to say like, okay, is this just all about me and what I want in this relationship, or am I really being other-centered and really looking into the heart of this person that I love and listening to them and asking questions to try to hear them, as well as bearing some things from my own heart. And then the frequency is like, okay, do we do this like once every few months, or are we actually keeping a regularity up so that I realize and we can grow deeper together?
No, absolutely. I love, again, how you said that and broke that down. That's really good. I love that formula, and I love that those points that you made right there. I mean, I think about frequency. This look at how we are supposed to, right? And we're called to, not like this is a commandment. Keep the Sabbath holy. So we have a week. And within a week's time, there's one day that's set apart from all the other days, where we're supposed to rest from everything and really focus in on our faith, with our relationship with God, going to church, worship, and our family time. And then I feel like in the day itself, we see in a week already that there is this kind of guardrail of protection to kind of make sure that relationship with God is not broken into, but also too, to be able to during the day have those days where you take time away. And I thought back in the day as a personal trainer, one of the things we would try to do is help people who haven't been doing anything in exercise start a workout program. And sometimes some of the challenges is that by the time someone gets into the gym, they're very excited about doing something, but they're overzealous or maybe over anxious or over ambitious with their goals, and they get burnt out, and it just causes a lot of complications and stuff like that with their schedule. And so then there's burnt out and all this stuff like that. So I guess all in that saying is that we need to take baby steps. We need to take baby steps and find, okay, during the day, if you're looking at a daytime, during the day? Is it in the morning or is it in the evening that we could do this or that kind of thing? I like what you said. I really think that the morning, the first thing in the day, that's got to be our prayer time with God. And part of it, I think we mentioned this before too, the success of that morning prayer hinges upon our ability to go to bed on time and have the day done earlier at night before we get into a later night, which is then going to creep into the next day and cause all kind of problems going forth from there. So anyway, so having those boundaries, setting those boundaries each day during the week, finding times, like you said, putting it into your schedule. That's another way of safeguarding your time and making sure that you know and everyone else knows, because we have doctor's appointments on our calendar, like some of us still do, right? We're still going to doctor's appointments, we're still doing things, and those things that are very important, we have it on the calendar. We space time for traveling there and traveling home, and we keep that it's near and dear to us. We don't break into that time. Same kind of thing. We need to make sure that we protect those times with our God, with our wife, with our children. And also make sure, like you're saying too, to kind of look at what are we going deeper in these conversations, because my quality time with my kids can't be the two of us kind of hanging out on the Xbox and playing games. That might be cool and fun or whatever, but there's a little bit more intimacy that needs to go into that.
Yeah, that's part of it too. Like I have to challenge myself, is actually sometimes I want to go too deep and they're not ready for that. And so it is important, I think, to sometimes like pace ourselves and recognize, well, it is good to just play with the kids and just play Xbox for a little while, or just throw the ball, or just ride a bike. But to see that as precursor that leads deeper into that conversation, where maybe we then lob the question that's a little deeper, or we share something that we've been thinking about that's a little bit deeper. And again, there has to be enough time for that to develop, for them to even feel comfortable to go into those places. And so the quality time with God and with our spouse and with our kids. And I want to throw out a little challenge, since we're doing this weekly. If you're watching this right now, we want to encourage you to take away one thing. What's your one thing from this? And so which of those areas do you need to put something on the calendar for this upcoming week before we jump on here next Wednesday? What one area, if is it a date with your spouse, that needs to happen, then lock it in, do it today before you do anything else. Try to put that on your calendar and see if that can happen before next week.
That's it, Brian. Thank you so much. Actually, I'm going to do that tonight. I'm going to ask Elise if she'd like to go on a date with me on the back porch once the kids are down. Maybe get a glass of wine and just sit back and just hang out. And regardless of what we talk about, I just want to spend time with her. Brother, I appreciate that. Brent, spending time with you today was awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. God bless you guys, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time. God bless you guys.
See you later.